The game went from being a street legend moving 500,000 units in just 1 week to becoming the butt of the joke in the rap game. Today, we're breaking down how he lost it all and torched his own career. Believe it or not, the game never even planned to rap. He came up in Compton, deep in the streets, claiming the Cedar Block Peru set. While both his parents were Crips, his older brother Big Face was a high-ranking Peru, so Game followed his footsteps into the gang life. Like a lot of kids in Compton, his childhood was rough. He spent 6 long years in foster care, and when he finally moved back in with his mom, she didn't even want him there. With nowhere to turn, Game went all in on the streets. He says back then, he never stepped out without 3 straps on him. He was even ballin' with a gun in his waistband. But that tough image didn't protect him forever, because in 2001, he got caught slipping and got lit up with 5 bullets. On his track From Adam, Game rapped about what went down. There's usually 10 Annies in our dope spot. Cold-ass night, I'm like a janitor at Wingstop. I usually play Xbox with the gun cocked. I'm cool with taking mine, but I took other Knox gunshots. Chest wide open, I'm trying to fight, but my lungs not. Hole in my chest about the size of a kumquat. After that ambush, he slipped into a coma for 3 days. Doctors weren't even sure he'd make it, but somehow he pulled through. While laid up in the hospital, barely hanging on, Game realized something had to change, and fast. Right after surviving that near-death shootout, Game told his brother to grab every classic rap album he could find. For months, he locked in, studying the greats and writing nonstop, sharpening his pen like his life depended on it. As soon as he could move again, Game hit the booth, dropped a mixtape with Big Face, and then came back even harder with his first solo tape. Out of nowhere, he went from 0 rap experience to signing with Get Low Records in just a few months. The industry started buzzing. Every label wanted him. Even Diddy tried to snatch him for Bad Boy Records. But Game had bigger plans. He signed with the legendary Dr. Dre and joined Aftermath. For a Compton kid, landing on Dre's label was like hitting the jackpot. At the same time, 50 Cent was running the game. His debut, Get Rich or Die Tryin', had the whole world in a chokehold. Dre and Jimmy Iovine knew exactly what they were doing. They plugged Game into 50's G-Unit movement, and it was a wrap from there. Linking up with 50 was major. Even before his debut dropped, being G-Unit affiliated gave Game a crazy amount of hype. He started popping up in music videos like In Da Club and hopping on features. People couldn't ignore him. So when his debut album finally dropped, the streets were ready. One track in particular, Hate It or Love It, featuring 50, blew up instantly. It skyrocketed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. And get this, the only reason it didn't hit number 1 was because 50's own track, A Candy Shop, was holding that top spot. The Game and 50 Cent were on fire. Hate It or Love It scored 2 Grammy nominations, and it looked like they were about to dominate the game together. They were holding down the coasts, Game repping the West, 50 holding down the East, and their momentum was unmatched back then. But instead of building a dynasty, they let drama tear it all down. The tension exploded into a full-blown beef, and it didn't stop at diss tracks. Things got so heated, it led to a wild shootout in the middle of New York City, and it seriously messed up Game's career. 50 had already built a name off controversy. Remember How to Rob? He came in the game calling people out on purpose. Starting beef was just part of 50's brand. But Game? He didn't want to beef with dudes just because 50 had a problem with them. He wasn't trying to inherit all of 50's enemies. Now here's the twist. These days, Game's known for picking fights out of thin air just to stay relevant. But back then, crossing 50 Cent was a major mistake. And it all came crashing down when 50 straight up kicked him out of G-Unit live on the radio. Talk about public humiliation. When someone asked 50 where Game stood with G-Unit, he snapped back, "Okay, not after being that disrespectful." That's when things got real. Game and his crew pulled up to the radio station, deep, like 30 guys deep. 50's squad wasn't backing down either. It turned into a full-on standoff, and eventually, both sides started letting off shots in the street. Miraculously, no one lost their life, but one person did take a bullet to the leg. And after the smoke cleared, 50 got petty, claiming he recorded 6 new tracks to replace Game on the album. Even after one of Game's boys took a bullet, 50 and Game stepped in front of the cameras and tried to squash the beef at a press conference. But fans weren't buying it. They blasted both of them for faking the drama just to boost album sales. Turns out, the fans might have been wrong, because things really popped off again not long after. 50 and G-Unit started throwing jabs at Game, and he didn't hold back. He launched a whole anti-G-Unit movement called G-U-Note and followed it up with a brutal diss track, 300 bars and runnin'. Game went off for 15 straight minutes, dragging 50 and the entire G-Unit crew. Beefing with 50 definitely messed with Game's momentum, but he still had fire in him. 50 kept claiming Game couldn't make hits without him, but then Game dropped his next album, Doctor's Advocate, and shut everyone up. It debuted at #1, his second straight chart-topping release without G-Unit behind him. But Game wasn't done stirring the pot. He turned his sights on even bigger names, taking shots at Jay-Z and Rockefeller Records too. On his track, My B Kiki, he came for 50J and even Suge Knight in the same verse. The way he put it was raw and bold. Let me tell you a story about this chick I know. Grew up on the South Side doing favors for dope. Give her $50, she'll put on a show. Do anything just to be in a Dr. Dre video. Then he aimed straight at Jay-Z with Bougie Chick, whoever thought she was raised in BK, moved out the hood, changed her name to Jay. Game wasn't holding anything back. He kept pushing the limits with lyrics like, told everybody she'll be working with Emil one day. I met her back in '96. Wavy hair, big lips, she was hard to hit. Then I found out the last 10 years she'd been doing the most for attention. With lines like that and his non-stop disses, Game kept his name in the spotlight by taking shots at people and dropping wild, controversial tracks. For a while, that shock value strategy kept him buzzing. But it wasn't built to last. By the time he dropped his fourth album, the numbers were already slipping. It still hit #2 on the Billboard 200, but the first week's sales were less than half of what the documentary pulled in. That was a clear sign the hype was fading. After that, Game shocked fans again, announcing he was stepping away from hip-hop to focus on his family. People didn't know what to make of it. But surprise, surprise, it didn't take long before he popped right back up. A lot of folks called cap on the whole retirement, and Game proved them right when he returned in 2009 with another album. This time, he even reconnected with Dr. Dre and got back under the Aftermath umbrella, now that all the chaos with 50 Cent had finally cooled off. But even with Dre back in his corner, not even he could help Game bring his career back to where it once was. Every album Game dropped after that just kept selling less and less, even though he was pulling in some of the hottest rappers in the game for features. His career wasn't completely dead, but nothing he dropped really made a big splash anymore. At that point, Game was better known for name-dropping and starting drama just to stay relevant. He had smoke with everybody, from Lil Durk to Kehlani. The situation with Durk kicked off after Durk started beefing with Game's close homie, Tyga. Game jumped on a diss track aimed at Durk, and things nearly exploded when their crews crossed paths at the club. It looked like it was about to go all the way left, but luckily it got squashed before anything popped off. Game's no stranger to beef, but getting into it with Durk and Chicago heavyweights? That could have gone real bad for him, fast. And then there was the whole situation with Lil Wayne and Young Thug. Wayne and Game had been cool for years, but when Wayne and Thug started going at it, Game jumped in to defend Wayne, even though he had nothing to do with it. Fans clowned him for inserting himself into the drama just to get some attention. Then in 2016, Game told fans he was cooking up a new album. And this time, he swore it would be his last. People rolled their eyes, thinking it was another fake retirement stunt. But then Game went quiet and spent 3 whole years working on the project. By 2019, he finally dropped Born to Rap, and surprisingly, fans actually rocked with it. Critics showed love, and Game proved he still had something in the tank. Born to Rap got solid reviews from critics, but here's the catch. Nobody else was listening. The album only moved around 23K in its first week, which made it clear Game had officially fallen off the radar. And to make it even worse, he didn't even get to keep any money from the album. Why? Because of a serious legal case from back in 2015. At the time, Game had a VH1 dating show called She Got Game, and one of the contestants, Priscilla Rainey, sued him for sexual assault. She claimed she was supposed to meet up with Game for a date on the show, but when she showed up, there was no production crew around. According to her, Game was heavily intoxicated, off both alcohol and drugs, and that's when the alleged assault happened. The court ruled in her favor, ordering Game to pay over $7 million, but instead of paying up, he just refused to hand over a dime. So in 2020, a judge hit him with a serious blow, granting Rainey ownership of his prolific record label and all the royalties from Born to Rap. Whether Game was really hurting for cash or just trying to stay in the spotlight, nobody was surprised when he popped back up again. Retirement didn't stick. Again. Soon enough, he was back in the studio teasing a new project. He dropped that album last August, this time with some big names riding with him. NBA YoungBoy, Kanye West, and more. Game was still trying to prove he had something left, but the buzz wasn't the same anymore. But not even major features could save the numbers. His latest project flopped hard, becoming his worst-selling album yet. Desperate to stir something up, Game dropped a 10-minute diss aimed at Eminem, hoping the controversy would spark some heat. But that move backfired. Bad. Instead of respect, he caught straight clowning from fans and rappers. People saw right through it, and the diss just made things worse. At this point, it's clear. Game's never gonna touch the same level he once had. The glory days of the documentary are long gone. These days, most rap vets his age are moving smart, managing artists, building brands, playing the long game. But Game's still out here chasing clout like he's trying to go viral on TikTok. Ain't nothing wrong with wanting to stay relevant, but at 43, it's time to play the game differently. Instead of gimmicks, maybe it's time for Game to step into that OG role for real. If you rocked with this breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment, share it with your people, and make sure you subscribe for more deep dives like this. You already know there's more wild stories coming your way.